Okay, so I have spent about the past 2 hours or so trying to figure out how do I create some sort of a video to cover up for the lack of the video in the podcast that you're about to listen to. And I realized that these things here, let me see if I can just show you that. This right here is super hard to make in DaVinci Resolve. I don't know why. It's so difficult to make kind of like this spectrogram. I think that's what they call it. Let me put that down. But it's so difficult to make that, and I spent the past about 2 hours trying to make that one thing. It was so time consuming rendering it on my M1 Mac Mini. I know it's not a super powerful editing computer, but yeah, I hope that you enjoy the. I hope that you enjoy the final version that I have now, and in this podcast, I really went in and I wanted to speak about something that I see in the market that a lot of product designers and product managers miss out on, especially when building products in smaller teams. And just as a spoiler alert, that is marketing. So, yeah, I hope that you enjoy the podcast. Let's jump into it. Welcome to Dive into Product, the podcast. I'm your host, Farah Henry. I'm a little bit rusty, so that was a terrible intro, but I'm going to keep it that way. And in this podcast, I speak about product design, product management, and industry news, tips and insights on building great products. I want to start this one by thanking the subscribers of the Dive into Product newsletter, which you will find over at dobetterux.com. And we are now a huge bunch of 100. So I think that is quite a significant and exciting milestone for myself. And I'm looking forward to seeing this community grow with more high quality people that really contribute to the community. I want to believe that most of these people are most of the connections that I have on LinkedIn anyway. But thank you so much for subscribing. If you're listening to this, you will see a link in the newsletter. You'll be the first one to get a link to this podcast. If you're listening to this, thank you so much. And if you're listening to this after the fact, if you have kind of like just discovered this organically on Spotify or through maybe some of the posts that I am going to be sharing after the fact, I would ask you to go to dobetterux.com right now and subscribe for the newsletter. The first issue is out, and go ahead and subscribe. It's free. So let's get into the podcast today. Today, I want to talk about a couple of things and really just get back into the rhythm of speaking. I haven't done this for so long, and I hope that this all sounds good. Everything sounds well. Looking back over the past 14 years, I have been deeply involved in assisting various teams in creating digital products. And throughout this journey, I have gained significant exposure to a lot of things that are really the main issues that unfortunately most of the projects that I've worked on have not succeeded in the market. And I've also kind of like seen a common thread, not only in the negative side but also on the positive side, right? Like on the products that I've actually managed to achieve success from the ground up, and the traits of some of the other highly competitive products that are already on the market within the same space, right? I've kind of like observed both sides of the story, right? And I think there is the biggest thing that I think that I've seen really is the main challenges around how teams are structured and how those teams interact with each other, right? And I'm going to talk about a different type of teams here that I see in most companies, in most team structures that I work in, right? You typically have your product designer, and I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you are some sort of a product person, whether product designer, product manager, or maybe you might be writing code, etc., right? So I think you've seen the scenario whereby we are all packed in the different skill sets that we are playing on that specific role, right? And some of us actually have overlapping skills, right? You find out that there is a designer who actually knows a little bit about coding or about project management or product management, rather. And you might have a developer who knows quite a bit about maybe, let's say, data analytics, right? But we're really siloed based on the skill sets that we kind of, signed up on that team for, right? So we are in our little buckets, as the design team or the designer. If it's in smaller teams, you usually find these people are individuals, right? And not, a set of designers or a larger group of individuals that are playing, one role. It's usually just one role, one person per role type of thing, right? So I think one of the biggest thing that I've seen in smaller teams, and obviously if we're speaking about new products that are coming from the ground up, is usually in the startup environment. Sometimes it might be in the corporate space when you are trying to spin up a new product, a new offering, and there is a smaller team that is spun up for that specific project, right? What we see happening there is that I think a lot of smaller product teams really focus on the main roles that make the product, right? And this is mainly the designer, the developer, and even the practices and the methods that are used to design this, to design and develop the product, right? There isn't like proper user research that is done. Granted, most of these things are really small MVPs, and that is what we're trying to get to so that we can deploy it into the market. But a little bit of user research, whether it's desktop user research or even, kind of like virtual interviews with potential customers, right, could give you a little bit of insight upfront, right, before you're getting into anything. And this is kind of like the common practice if you have a set of designers first and developers, right? But one set of success element that I've seen in most of the teams that I've worked with is actually in marketing skills, right? So I believe that every product, as it gets built and launched, I think marketing really plays a big role. I think it plays a big role in validating ideas. I think it plays big role in just general product success, right? So this podcast is going to talk about how marketing is actually quite a fundamental role for UX designers, and I think it is a good thing for designers to kind of like approach this space where we can wear multiple hats, understand multiple roles of the of the stakeholders that play within the project and how that impacts the success of the project. And I think marketing is one of those things that really put the product out there, help you get early customer feedback, and most products that do this part well, both in incorporating marketing skills within the team as well as employing marketing early on within the project, are usually some of the most successful ones. So if you think about some of the big brands out there, Apple, Mercedes, or whatever it is, right? They have very intricate and complex marketing campaigns, right? And these are done in a way where it attracts media, it attracts, a different wave of people to speak about it and, drive that attention and momentum before the product is even put on the market, right? So that is exactly what I'm talking about. So in a previous post or podcast, I don't know if it might have even been a live stream, I spoke about how landing pages are one of the best ways that you can use to validate ideas. And if you think about it, you just have to build a landing page, put it out there, put a little bit of marketing budget into it, get some users to sign up for a wait list. And I found this as the fastest way to kind of like validate ideas by just, putting out a landing page there and see if people are interested in the product or not. If they are not interested in the product, I always create some way of form for people to be able to ask further questions to kind of like find out what they want from the product, right? Or what is it that they don't quite understand about the messaging that you put on a landing page. And landing pages also force you to kind of like just put your idea in the simplest form possible, to explain what it is before you actually build all these complex things and journeys that you envisage building, right? So let me go back to marketing for a little bit. So going back to marketing, there is a common thread in the successful projects that I've actually launched, right? And this comes from the pure concept, like I've just mentioned, that, by having marketing early on helps products succeed. And this is what I think the formula is. I think you have a great product that has got a great support team behind it that is able to kind of like react, especially in the early days of launching a product. That product needs to obviously really be answering and solving a real problem, right? Something, whether it's entertainment problem, whatever pain point it is, right? Or a real business problem or a personal problem or whatever it is, right? All of that coupled with great marketing, so that it drives awareness of what the product actually does to solve, right? I think that is the formula there, right? I'm happy to hear suggestions. Please feel free to comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on. I'm sure there should be links to my LinkedIn profile. Please feel free to connect with me there. I am open to hearing, kind of like what your formula of success looks like. But for me, it's that. It's a great product supported by a great team. Great product means a product that solves the core problem, and that is your MVP, right? Like I see MVPs with like all the bells and whistles. It's like, oh, MVP needs to look very good. It's like, no, you just need to make it solve the core problem, right? And you need to have, marketing material that explains exactly what your product does, so that users can understand that and be able to click the sign up button and adopt it, right? Why am I talking so much about marketing? I think that this is one skill set that a lot of designers and product people kind of like take as an afterthought, right? Even in the hiring process of most of the teams that I've been in, there's product people first, and product people are not marketing people, right? Like there's product people, and product people are typically, your designers, developers, project managers, et cetera, right? The people who will, get the stuff done, who put the idea to life, your UX, UI designers, right? And I think by having this skill as somebody who's in the typical framework of what a product person is, I think by having a good idea and a good set of marketing skills will set you apart in any team that you could be in, any product team that you could be in out there. And the reason why I say that is that a lot of people are not looking at this angle of product success, and this is what really puts products out there so that people have got awareness, right? There are a lot of marketing skills that you can employ, from an organic marketing point of view. So, posting things on your channels, kind of like curating them and tweaking as people go. And you can look at paid marketing as well, right? Kind of, proper targeting, getting the right analytics and feedback early on. And you can, kind of like start using that feedback to build your product further. So I think this is one important skill set that we're not talking about in the product space. And it has been, what I want to believe, something that has been a maker or breaker in not only the products, but also within the teams, right? So typically you would find teams that are siloed. And again, by learning a multitude set of skills, I'm not saying that be an expert in everything. I think I really believe in people developing themselves into T-shaped people, right? So T-shaped people are people really specialized and get really well in doing one thing, right? So it could be UX design, it could be product management, it could be, and if you're in product management, you definitely need to know, a huge piece of marketing, because that is how you'll be speaking with people. You could be a developer or whatever it is, but if you're working within that product space, you also need to know a little bit about design. You also need to know a little bit about coding. You also need to know a little bit about marketing, etc., right? And this really helps you not only be a person who's got a diverse skill set, to be able to help the team to achieve a better quality output, right? And be a higher value individual. But this also helps you as a product person to be able to have a bird's eye view where you can kind of really understand the entire project from start to end. I've worked so much with people who don't understand how the other department works, because they're kind of like siloed, live in their little world, live in their little bubble, and don't even learn a little bit about what the other silo does. And I think that is something that, especially small teams, and if you're hiring for small teams and you're listening to this, I think those are the type of people that you want to look for. You want to look for T-shaped people. And I'm not saying that so that you can, abuse them by making them do everything, but it will help having smoother conversations between the team And I think it will bring a lot of team alignment as well, right? Like there's a lot of pushback on even us as teams, right? Like the design team kind of wants to get, feedback from the developers or the marketing team or the business team, and then go back in our little design box and kind of like do our magic, right? Same thing with the developers, same thing with the marketing guys. They want to get feedback from the rest of the team, and then we kind of like go back into our silo and work on these things. And I think that kind of like kills a lot of things. Obviously we do it to optimize our workflows and how we work, right? But I think there has to be way more overlap of understanding of what each silo does between the silos, as well as not having kind of like a key man dependency, right? If especially smaller teams, if you lose a marketing guy, I think one of the team members should be able to pick up that role. If you lose a designer or whatever it is, while you're still trying to get a replacement, or if you cannot afford them anymore, you should be able to kind of like be able to pick up that role. But this is a common thread, a common theme that I've seen so much that I thought that let me talk about this today. I don't know if this is something that you have particularly seen within your the structures of your teams, the ways that you work. I'm interested to know what your take is on this conversation. So please do reach out over on LinkedIn or Twitter if you're a Twitter person. My name is Farima Henry on both of those platforms. You should be able to find links in the description page, section, wherever you're listening to this on. I will put some links to my platforms there. So yeah, that is mainly what I wanted to speak about today. And I want to just, do a quick wraparound on what is it exactly that I've covered in here. So over the past 14 years that I've been working with product teams, I've basically seen a lot of teams lose out on the opportunity of bringing in marketing early on, and having their products be successful and people know about it a lot. There is this thing where as product teams, we want to develop the product far enough before we even announce it to the public, right? And that's where I have found landing pages and adopting a more marketing approach helps a lot of teams actually validate ideas and concepts before they do anything. I mean, you can go into Framer or any of this website building tools out there to build a landing page with your offering with a wait list. And then that will be your first set of customers, right? Drive that conversation engagement, organically paid, whichever approach that you want to do before you even start building your product, and start getting this feedback early on. I always hear this conversation from design teams. It's like, oh, how do we recruit customers and kind of like, users for like sessions and feedback sessions and kind of surveys and things like that. And if nobody knows about your product, it's going to be a hard conversation for you to recruit anybody. That's why people start going into this recruiting platforms, this UX testing websites. I'm not saying that you should not use those resources, but if you're actually building a product and you have a landing page out there and people are interested enough to be able to leave their contact details, then you've got a direct interested customer that can be, is definitely an early adopter because they've never heard about your product before. But the way that you've explained it, if you can keep up to your promises, they would love it, right? So work on the MVP of what you have kind of marketed, and like don't have fake advertising AI type of marketing campaigns, right? Like I've seen a lot of if you read the newsletter, right? I speak a lot about the Rabbit AI, and kind of like how the marketing kind of doesn't really meet reality, right? So if your marketing really speaks to the solution and your MVP that you're working on in the background really, kind of like ties into that well, then, those first people that sign up, they're kind of like a guaranteed set of early adopting customers. So use this for launching products, use marketing to get feedback from the market as you build your products. And I think this is one of the most underrated skills in product teams that I think every product designer, product developer, product manager needs to learn. I think if you're a product manager, you should actually have a lot of knowledge and skill set in product marketing, because I think that is how you interact with most of your customers, and actually figure out what people want to do. So if you're listening to this from a person who is hiring, I would suggest that you look for these type of T-shaped people, especially if you're hiring for smaller teams. This also works for bigger teams, right? Because if you have more and more people kind of like can have these overlapping conversations, obviously you will have your typical structure of who actually looks after the marketing, the design, whatever it is. But if you have T-shaped people, the conversations behind those silos start to feel less like silos, right? So if you're listening to this from either point of view, I would suggest that you have more of this within your teams, within your products. And I hope that this brings some value to you, and I hope that you have a successful product journey ahead of you, whatever you're working on. That's it for me. That's it for this week's podcast. I'll catch you guys next week, and I'm out.